The international community is now in agreement.
A missile that landed in Poland yesterday, killing 2 people, was most likely a stray rocket fired by Ukraine.
Poland is a NATO country, which means a deliberate attack would require a response. Lots to discuss today with Yoshiko Herrera. She is the professor of political science at UW-Madison and an expert on Ukraine. Good to see you again.
Hi, Yoshiko. Good to see you.
Likewise, thanks.
So what was your reaction when you heard this news?
Well, my initial reaction was that it's potentially very serious, but we needed to wait to find out what actually happened, because it would have been very escalatory if it had been a missile from Russia. But it looks like not the worst case scenario in Russia attempting to escalate with NATO, but more of an accident. But still, nonetheless, most people agree it's still Russia's fault because they had fired almost 100 missiles into Ukraine the other day.
Why would it potentially be such a serious situation?
Well, Poland is a NATO member, and NATO is a security alliance, a military alliance where we have a commitment to protect each other. And so an attack by Russia, a direct attack by Russia on Poland or any other NATO country would be considered an attack on NATO, including the United States as part of that military alliance. And that would necessitate, many people cite Article 5, a commitment to respond as if it were an attack on all other NATO countries. So it potentially could have drawn the U.S. and other NATO countries into some sort of response if it had been a direct attack by Russia on NATO.
So how close did we get to, say, having World War III?
Well, I think something that is promising is that it seemed to me that the leadership of NATO, as well as leadership of the NATO countries, including the United States, reacted calmly to the news and called for investigations and a specific investigation into what exactly happened. So I think that it's reassuring to see that there wasn't a knee-jerk reaction by NATO or NATO countries to immediately respond, but rather a reaction to investigate what happened.
It has now been 8 months since the Russian invasion in Ukraine, and Ukraine has had some successes recently, causing Russia to pull back in places like Kherson and some of the southern regions. What is the status of the war right now?
Well, the status is that Ukraine has slowly but surely made progress in pushing Russian forces further and further east out of Ukraine. So Russia still occupies the areas of Donetsk and Luhansk and part of Zaporizhia and part of Kherson Oblast. But this loss of the city of Kharkiv, which is a large city, and the city of Kherson is a major victory for the Ukrainians, especially because Russia had declared Kherson a part of Russia. So I think the initial victories of pushing the Russians out of Kiev was, vitally important. But these victories in the east also show that the Ukrainian strategy of methodically attacking Russian supply lines and logistics and moving further and further east is working.
Gains on the ground, and Russia responds with missile attacks.
Yes, and not just missile attacks to the area of fighting in the east, but these are attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure throughout Ukraine. So this is a kind of desperate strategy that is absolutely doomed to fail in terms of what they're trying to do is weaken Ukrainian resolve. So the Russian side thinks that by bombing electricity facilities and heating facilities and putting Ukrainians in the dark and the cold is going to change their mind. But it actually has had the opposite effect in terms of strengthening not only Ukrainian resolve, but if you look at the response to this incident yesterday in Poland, you see a very unified response from the U.S. and European leaders and NATO leadership about the need to continue to support Ukraine.
It was a tragedy, but cooler has prevailed, thankfully. Yoshiko, thanks for being with us again. Great to see you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Yoshiko. Appreciate your time.